What health issue do 47 million new people confront every year? There will be 1.2 billion people in this category by 2030. But here's a clue. More than 75% experience symptoms like hot flashes, mood changes, and sleep problems. Today, how can we make sense of menopause? With me this week is Lorianne L.A. Glassford. She is the founder and curator of Unlocking Her Retreats and the Glassford Group. She champions women to rise in leadership, we love that, and works tirelessly to combat ageism. So this is going to be a good one. But first, welcome to this week's episode of Make Sense, a video podcast that simplifies complex issues at the intersection of tech and people. So whether you're totally hyped on artificial intelligence and you're ready for the robot takeover, or you want to crawl into a cave after deleting all of your social media accounts, I'm here with my guests to help make sense of what's going on so you can design yourself into the future. My name is Lindsay Tabus. I'm a product market fit strategist, innovation consultant, and venture fundraising advisor. If you're new here, subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So let's make sense of the future of menopause. LA, how are you?
I'm fantastic. And I wanted to jump in. I was just like, yes, but then I'm like 1.2 billion. There's so much to talk about. I can't wait to get started.
Yeah. These numbers are staggering, but we're talking about roughly half the population experiencing symptoms for about 7 years or longer, depending.
Yeah. And, you talk about symptoms. And first of all, let's just talk about the fact that it's taboo to talk about.
Yeah.
So
we're talking about it today.
And we're talking about it today. And then you look at the workforce and, in the US alone, they say there are 41 million approximately women over 40. And over 40, you're probably already in perimenopause, you're going into menopause. And that means that like 26% of the workforce is actually experiencing menopause on any given day. And
That's huge.
It's massive. And I had a conversation, back and forth on LinkedIn that actually moved into an offline conversation with an individual. And we were talking about my post. And I had posted about the fact that, guys, you've known me in leadership for over 40 years. You've seen me in the boardroom, on stage, facilitating in front of 2,000 people. Chances are I'm 60. You've seen me for 20 of those years, and 100% I was in the middle of menopause. I started menopause at 41. So I just wanted to kind of paint that picture because, when I had this conversation, and you're going to have to interrupt me because I'm just like, bleh. But this...
You get like one more minute, and then I'm going to interrupt you.
Conversation about, just like AI and what's happening. And the reason I did the post was, was the whole, when people think menopausal women.
We're going to talk about that. Yeah.
Right. If you key that in,
we're going to
talk. It's women going.
Yeah. Don't spoil it. We're going to get there. So, LA.
Yeah.
With Make Sense, we like to start with our first segment, Crystal Ball. What does the future hold? This is where I call out interesting predictions for this year, and the experts, my guests, tell us their hot take. This time, I'm going to do rapid fire.
Great.
And I want you to say, yes, I want that to happen, or no, please no.
Okay.
And at the end, we'll pick some of those topics and go into the next segment to talk further about them. Okay.
Wonderful.
So because you and I got to chat, and I knew that you have plenty of interests outside of menopause and ageism and women in leadership. I'm going to start with a really wild one.
Okay.
So using the C to power electronics. So again, you can say, I want that to happen, or I don't want that to happen. So the global shortage of minerals needed for electric vehicle batteries is short. So we need to harvest minerals in the ocean and use the power.
I don't want that to happen.
You don't?
I don't want that to happen.
Why not?
Because what happened? So then the pendulum's just going to swing the opposite way. We're still talking about natural resources. So whether it's gas or an electrical grid or minerals, you cannot deplete 100% of everything and not have a negative impact.
Okay. So you don't think that maybe, we use wind farms and solar panels that are like, collecting, pressure or energy that might just be like sinking? We shouldn't use those?
There has to be a balance.
Yeah.
I think there has to be a balance. So if that's all we're doing, no. If we're doing that as part of a bigger picture and there are different balls in the air, we've got the wind farms and we've got, a little bit of coal, or we've got a little, absolutely, but never single source. I mean, when you swing a pendulum any way and you hold it, there's pressure there.
Right.
It has to be a balance.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much we don't know about the ocean and the sea. We should tread slowly, but I am optimistic that we can find ways to get over the limitations that electrical vehicle batteries and just batteries in general, like we're facing right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. My husband and I were talking about this morning. There was an article, we talked about this a lot. Last year, there was an article when there was a heat wave in California.
Yeah.
And there, where it's like 2% of all Californians have a green car. Mm-hmm. Only 2%. And in that heat wave, the message was, please don't charge your electrical vehicle because it's going to put too much pressure on the grid. 2%
right.
of a population. Like, we can't get to 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 80%
right.
because
it can't handle it.
It can't handle it.
All right. So we do need to work on that. And in interest of time, I'm going to keep going. So the next one is immortality as a service. Humans have fantasized about extreme lifespans for millennia, but the age-old pursuit is now attracting fresh interest from venture capitalists and tech companies. Do you want immortality as a service or no?
That's we could do a whole talk just on that.
Give me a yes or no real quick.
No, I think it's taking advantage. No.
Okay. Yeah.
No.
On another episode with the emergency room pediatrician, Jinsey Jacob, she's also an angel investor. We talked about, what the average lifespan is in the US and how it's actually declining. But I want to know what the ideal lifespan is for an American. And if people really want to live that much longer than that. Right. So
and it's how they want to live. Like, what's that quality of life?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So next one, mental health will become the new annual physical. So 1 in 5 Americans, I know you're in Canada, experience mental illness. Are we going to see a rise in mental health check-ins?
Absolutely.
So, even amongst people that don't take medication or regularly see psychiatrists or therapists, just like, how's your brain doing these days?
I really believe so, because I think there's just such a stigma about it that it's, yes, it's so much, we're so much farther along talking about this, but every time we talk about it, more people become more aware. And I just think knowledge is power. So absolutely.
100%. All right. Hybrid work is here to stay. So companies will focus on when just as much as where we work. So what side are you on?
100% hybrid. It's never, it cannot go back.
All right, cool. I was wondering, because we're in different generations, how you felt about that.
Yeah, I just, if at 60 and in leadership and go, hustle. And then lockdown. When I looked at least my team, I was working for a global organization, $140 billion organization. And at that time, we were getting more shit done. So I can't argue with it.
Yep. Yeah. And to tie that back to mental health, I remember reading a statistic that was something like, if your commute was more than 35 minutes each way, it had huge negative impact on your mental health. So I think a lot of people probably feeling better because they don't have to commute at all anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a whole other, additive I would put on just the women and the gendered effect. But no, absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Last one in your wheelhouse. FemTech turns to menopause. More famous women are leading the menopause conversation. More startups are turning to underserved issues like menopause as women's health space continues to expand.
Well, so when just this moment, I thought of when you said that, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Once again, industry is going to see a market, much like they did with anti-aging and everything else. And now that now we're starting to talk about menopause a little more. Now you're seeing apps to track your menopause, not just your period, but now tracking menopause symptoms. And, now you're getting a lot more, dangerously performative actions by companies going, oh, I guess we've got to have a policy, put something in place. But for me, seeing just the fact that we're talking about it is fantastic, but you're always going to have people jumping on the bandwagon going, oh, well, there's an opportunity to make money. There's an opportunity,
There's also founders that have been waiting in the wings, that have been, pounding the drum and not getting enough attention. So once it becomes destigmatized, it creates finally this opening for them to grow faster than what they could when no one else was talking about it.
It does, as long as they're the ones getting the support and the funding.
Yep.
Right? At the end of the day, as long as they're the one that were grassroots and they were banging all the time, right? They were there no matter what. As long as they're the ones that are getting the light, absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate your energy. So speaking of menopause, let's get into our second segment. Yeah. How did we get here and where can we go now? So technology does move super fast, and the news likes to, tout all the investments and the future possibilities. But sometimes what the news and media are saying is pretty far off from what's actually going on. So in this segment, we're going to talk about some of the more interesting headlines and trends and find out what's actually going on. So LA, when you key in menopausal women into AI-powered search engines, what comes up?
I wish I had printed out what comes out. And I'm not making this up. What comes out immediately in chat bots or in art bots, okay, anything you key that in, is women animated like this, or
angry.
Or they're either angry or they've got these gigantic fans.
Yeah.
Okay. Or hot, but they're always in an image of panic. Angry, scrunched up faces. There's lots of wrinkles. Their mouths are always open, like angry, screaming monster. Be afraid. Be very afraid of these pictures.
Yeah, and as you said, women can start down the menopause train when they turn 40 or around then. So to characterize only women with menopause as being super wrinkled and old is really unfair to the younger ones that are starting down this journey, right?
It really is unfair. I mean, it's like most women, without even realizing it, are already in perimenopause at 38, 39, 40. And yet, because we don't talk about it a lot, or even, we can go into women's healthcare, everything. It's like, well, you're just working too hard, or you're just a little bit tired, or you're losing concentration because of this, or you're hot because of they're all symptoms. And yet, the more we talk about it, the more that we can get help and even in a natural way to combat it. But not talking about it can really go back to mental health. It can really screw with what's wrong with me? Yeah,
you think something's wrong with you.
Absolutely.
And you can't separate the symptoms from who you are, what you really want for yourself, or how you want to act in a specific situation. What is when AI-powered searches return pictures like that, what does it make you think about artificial intelligence and where AI is taking us?
Honestly, it just tells me, it just shines a red light on the opportunity. Like, we're just going too fast. Once again, it's, the information that goes in is what's going to get manipulated and spit out. So we've got to make sure that the right information, the right raw data is being fed into these algorithms and into these bots, because then we will get more truer pictures. I mean, somebody at some point keyed in, angry, wrinkled, old, like some sort of words. I don't know.
Well, to make sense of what powers artificial intelligence is, yes, there's kind of a data set, right? But in the data world, we've always had this term like garbage in, garbage out, right? So a lot of these big AI-powered search engines that people might have started to play with, especially because we've been talking about it on Make Sense, like ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
This ChatGPT is trained on basically the internet, right? Anything that they can access, similar to like Google, right, can access and search on each user's behalf, they have used to feed in to this AI bot. And that's what ChatGPT is using. So the internet's full of garbage, but is also full of a ton of outdated stereotypes, right? And so we can literally see those stereotypes perpetuating themselves kind of into the future through these chatbots. And if we don't make an effort in the people that are training these bots to put more diverse sets, maybe more relevant and equitable kind of information into these bots, then we're going to continue to feed out the scary, sweaty, angry, tired, wrinkly woman as a picture of menopause.
We are. And I mean, AI is sexy. It's convenient. It's new. It's shiny. It's smart. But it's also sexist, ageist, racist, homophobic. It's all of that, because to your point,
it represents society
out there. That's what's out there for them to pull from. So you make a really, really good point. But when you say, what I think, I just believe it's an opportunity. I mean, we need more businesses creating businesses to make sure that when we are coming up with these chatbots and these new apps and so on, that they can be as useful and dynamic as they can be.
Yeah.
So that we don't have to spend time worrying about is it misogyny? That's the business. That's the opportunity right there.
Right. So let's take a step back. How did you rise into becoming an advocate and leader in this space?
That's my lived experience. I think, put quite simply, I've been in leadership roles since I was 20, and, just graduating in bigger leadership roles in bigger companies across the US and Canada. And, like I said, I went through menopause at 40 and just kind of powered through. Just like, I don't need anything. I'm not going to get any help. I'm just going to power through, and I'm going to suck it up and, just do what I need to do. But, I believe that as the longer we live, the more we realize what's super important. I think you see a lot of people, men, women, all sorts of genders. You see everybody kind of stepping into wanting to help or wanting to affect as they get older. Well, it's because you've made your money, you've had your kids, you've bought your house, you've got your car. Okay, now what? And, which is right to the wellness and everything. And I think for me, I found my voice through a couple of instances that had happened in the media. I started to really use my voice on LinkedIn in a way I hadn't before. That couple posts went viral. I didn't expect that. And as a result, my community expanded. And when my community expanded, my voice got more informed, and then it got louder. And so it just kind of organically happened. But I think that if anyone that really knows me or has known me for some time is not surprised at that natural growth. I've always used my voice, but in a different way. And there are different layers of masks. So I really feel like I've got absolutely nothing to lose. It's,
Right.
I own my own businesses. I don't have to worry about a boss and me saying the wrong thing.
Right.
And I'm post-menopausal.
Yeah.
So I'm only speaking about my lived experience.
100%. What was going on if you said there were some societal or cultural moments that you wrote about on LinkedIn? Was there something specific that stood out?
There was. I mean, we had a TV's newscaster, Lisa LaFlemme, who was let go unceremoniously. And there was a lot, there was a lot of back and forth, and she was of a certain age and had decided to let her hair go gray on national TV. A woman that had, won more awards. It's just, Lisa LaFlemme, folks. Go look at it. And so I did a post, but not just about Lisa, but about Serene and in overseas and all the different things that were happening with women of a certain age and how they were being lumped together, and not by women. And so what I did is I told my own story that was virtually identical when I decided to let my hair go gray, which it is. I've been gray now for, 15 years. But it was always dark black, always. And I just decided I'm done. And so I gave a story that was a true story. It's super sad and what had happened to me. And I posted it.
Yeah. What had happened to you? Can you give us
No, sure. I'll just give you a quick. So I was I think I was 40. I was in my late 40s, 48, I guess. I decided to go. I was already gray, super short hair, and it was a snowstorm, and I had to go get a car because something happened to my car. So my husband said, look, I'll take you to Enterprise. We'll go over there. So I went over. Again, I got my baseball hat on. I come in. I got no makeup. My hair's gray. I come in, and the guy comes to the counter and says, what can I help you and your mother with today?
Oh, no.
And I'm like, okay, I know my husband's younger than me, but this is ridiculous. And I had like a full on disassociation panic. Like I shut down. Now my husband, lost it a bit. He's and then I left and I said, stop at the grocery store. And he goes, what? I go, no, stop at Shoppers. He stopped at Shoppers. I bought a bottle of hair dye. I went home. I dyed my hair and I was miserable for the next 6 weeks going, what the hell did I do? What have I done? That was at 48.
Yeah.
Like right. And so there's so much stigma. And when it happens to an individual, regardless of who you are, it's hurtful.
Right.
And it just, everything that you're already self-doubting and afraid of, bubbles up to the surface, right?
Right.
And so for me, that was my story, and I shared it. I shared that along, and all of it, 150,000 people panned on. It was
by sharing your story, you invited other people to share theirs. It kind of reminds me of there's kind of a ongoing joke on the internet. I don't really want to call it a meme, but basically how women advising women don't get bangs, right? Right. Like in a moment of desperation or a breakup, don't do bangs. You're going to regret it. And so it sounds like it's I dyed my hair and I immediately regretted it.
I was right. And now you look back and there was a meme going around late last year or early last year where it showed the Golden Girls and they were all at 55 and the Sex and the City women all at 55. And they put the two pictures together and it was said something like, 55 looks a lot different these days. And I thought, Jesus, God, you're still doing that. And now we're saying you've got to dye your hair, you've got to get fillers, you've got to get Botox because now that's the expectation. I mean, it's BS, right? And so there's just this, no matter how much you want to take care of yourself, it just seems like there's another punch. And so I just decided to use my voice.
But couldn't the picture of Sex and the City also be used as a celebration of how far we've come in terms of how we take care of ourselves and our bodies and love ourselves, and
and there was a whole contingent of us that felt that. But what was pushed out in the media and what it was used for was a big joke.
Yeah.
And it was tough. It was tough for a lot of women.
And it was insensitive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, media is so insensitive to women up and down the age groups and experiences. But for sure, you know, the picture of a menopausal woman, according to artificial intelligence, scary, tired, sweaty, wrinkly.
Yeah. Be scared of her.
It reinforces the fear all women have around just getting older.
Yeah. Really does.
It does.
It's that losing control. That's
right.
The image said this is an individual who does not have control of her own faculties in any way.
Right. But there's so much that the medical world does not know about women and aging, right? There's so much that we still don't understand. And there's all these kind of rules, right? Like a woman who is 34 and pregnant is a geriatric pregnancy, right? But then at the same time, I have friends that froze their eggs around 39, 40 years old. And all the doctors were like, you'd be lucky to get 5 eggs. And both of them, 18, 20 eggs, right? So this idea that you can't have babies after 34 or just geriatric pregnancy, it's really just, you know, there's so much information that we don't have about women and aging. It makes us all very scared about aging. And then we just reinforce how like angry, desperate, stressed, and scary older women are.
You just said something that made me make a link to something you had said earlier, which was, you know, we're not getting diagnosed because we don't know about it. A lot of women are, you know, having stroke symptoms and they're calling it something else. The information that is fed into Google, which AI is pulling from, the information over decades and years and years and years of medical, you know, those doctors that came out, right? It's again, it's the information that everyone needs to be taught at that level. If you're not taught and menopause isn't talked about, or menopause doesn't have the funding for the studies and so on and so forth, then you're not going to get the right raw data. And then that's going to come out in practitioners, you know?
Right. Exactly. So I think there are some reasons to be hopeful. Going back to the, you know, FemTech for menopause and the opportunity, I saw some headlines that I thought were interesting. There's a mother-daughter duo who invented an AI-driven wristband called Thermoband, which uses technology to help menopausal women through hot flashes. I think it's a cooling device. Although I will tell you from my insider knowledge and relationship with Brilliantly that we have a company that actually makes warming devices for women, that our senses of temperature are most sensitive in our wrists and our chest. And so the wrists can be good, but the chest is actually better. So next time, you know, put an ice pack down the The other headline I saw was that the Mayo Clinic partnered with an app by Lisa Health. It's called Midday, and it also is leveraging AI and sensor technology to support menopause management and healthy aging. So helping you kind of track your menopausal progression and take health assessments, access specialists, you know. I mean, knowledge is power, right? So just knowing where your hormones are any given day can really make a difference in how you approach the day's activities and what your self-talk is like.
It really is. And I'm really encouraged, I have to say this, I have run into 2 young men, one in his 40s and one in his 20s, and in conversations in business. And both of these individuals told me that one had his girlfriend and one had his wife's app on their phones, their period app. So they could be in tune and be more supportive. And I was almost like broke down in tears. I'm like, this is everything. Like, this is absolutely everything. And you go back to these apps in the menopause, and it needs to be the same thing when 50% of the population is having these biological transitions.
Right. I use in the idea of hormones and knowing what's going on with your hormones. Everyone is familiar that women's hormones fluctuate over around a 4-week cycle. I use an app called Hormone Horoscope for the past 6 or 7 years that lets me know what's going on with progesterone and estrogen so that I can, like I said, make adjustments to my day. So for instance, week 3, right after a woman ovulates, progesterone starts getting pumped into her system. Your body is excited at the idea that it might be pregnant. It doesn't yet know that it is not pregnant. It is excited about the idea that you might be pregnant. Yeah. And so it pumps you full of this hormone that makes you really tired and quiet so that you just want to stay home and curl up on your couch because that's where you're safest. You only want to be around people that you are comfortable with, that you know, because again, that's where you are safest. Your body is pumping you full of this hormone to make you stay safe in case you're pregnant, right? When it realizes in week 4 that it is not pregnant, the progesterone drops away, but your estrogen always drops so that you get your period. And then every time your estrogen drops, it creates like madness in your hormones. And that's where the anger, like maybe the stereotypical symptoms of anger come from. Right. So this is how I use it. And there's some women, when I say they should use this, they say they don't want to be defined by their hormones. But I'm sorry, you don't have a choice.
I was going to say, but we are. It's at the cellular level. We are.
You don't have a choice. So for instance, if I sign up for meetups or networking events, or I have dates and I realize that I am feeling like garbage because it's week 3 and my body wants me to stay home and stay safe and it's pumping me full of hormones, making me feel that way. When I cancel my plans, instead of making myself feel bad for canceling my plans, for saying, oh, you're not doing the things you said you were going to do, you're letting other people down, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, my hormones, and it's like puts it in another category. My hormones are making me feel this way. So now I can be more understanding about where I am. And
being more understanding of you and stop judging yourself for not showing up.
Exactly. Right. And then with women in leadership, I mean, I imagine it in a personal relationship or a professional relationship, knowing that, hey, on these days of my cycle, I'm just not my talkative, bubbly self, right? That's how the hormones are making me feel. So if I can walk into a board meeting, right, and say, hey guys, I'm on the quiet side today. Don't, misconstrue my quiet for disinterest or something. Right. And if you can say that up front, you can avoid like any conflict down the road. And then you get people's sympathy and understanding and help, right? Which is instead of frustration.
It is. And just what you said, I had a flashback to a board meeting. Like I just had a flashback because, the first thing is, are you okay? After the meeting, are you okay? Mm-hmm. I'm high energy. I'm very engaged. I'm very vocal. Right. And, when I wasn't, that always meant something was wrong. Not in a million years did it cross my mind that I could have said, oh my God, it's because of this. Absolutely not. And in the last 25 years, I was normally either the only one or one of 2 women in the room. It just wasn't, to your point, it wasn't safe for me to articulate exactly why, or to start off the meeting and just like set the tone. FYI, I'm just going to be a little more reserved, but that's still my 100% today.
Yeah. And on the positive side, you can also use the knowledge to your advantage. Like, the first, for women that still are getting their period, the first 2 weeks of your cycle, you have a lot of energy, you're feeling great about yourself. So maybe that's when you want to, go out on dates or schedule video calls and video production because you're going to show up on your social media accounts looking awesome and feeling awesome, right? Right. So you can then start to strategize your days and it becomes a productivity tool. not just, an emotional or mental health support.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I think when you said productivity, all I could think of was just the lost productivity for companies. Like it's going to be billions and billions and billions of dollars in lost productivity of women, calling in sick or not being able to show up in that one day, knowing they should be misunderstood, missing the meeting, not being able to go to the event, whatever.
Yeah. And I think that's why that's the kind of intersection between what we're talking about with menopause and then the future of work, right? And hybrid work and having more flexible requirements around when someone works, because the more we understand our bodies and how these chemicals are making us feel, the more we can plan ahead and not have a random day surprise us and then we can't show up,
Absolutely. I mean, and the contingent that is get back to work, get back in our offices, get back, don't experience any of these things.
Yeah.
And so,
or if they do, they don't want to be aware of them.
They don't want to be aware, or they don't believe it. They cannot get there in themselves, which is a whole other story. Yeah. But yeah.
So we're kind of going to bring it back full circle back to artificial intelligence. So we talked about menopause and the future of work. We talked about menopause and AI. We're going to go back to that. We see headlines every day about AI and its ability to replace people and jobs. Today I saw a headline that for the first time, this company that tracks job losses, in May, they tracked job losses and a new category is due to AI. So it was about 5% of 80,000 people that lost their jobs in May. 5%, the company was honest enough to attribute it to AI. Right. So in talking about AI's effect on women in general, but women in the workforce, where are your biggest concerns and who are you most concerned for women in the workforce when we talk about AI replacing people and taking people's jobs?
I am most concerned with the administrative level of professionals, which, by the way, none of the leaders can be there without their administrative support.
Right.
So they sit on a tripod of support. And you knock that out. I think it's more the administratives, like the customer service, the data entry, the administrative assistants, the paralegals, like anything requiring data. I think like even like surveys and HR, and I think it gets very dangerous. But chat box, it all talks about it's going to free up time for administrative, and that way they can, move on to other tasks. When administrative professionals serve an administrative role and you take it away, they are not going to be reassigned to other tasks. We've seen that in a lot of different industries. They're going to lose their jobs, whether it's layoffs or terminations or just the role doesn't exist anymore. And so, we already have a gendered wage gap where women make 84 cents to.
Oh, is it up? I thought we were still in the 70s.
Yeah. So this is in June. It was 80 in the US. It was 84 cents currently. Woohoo! But my currency rate at the US to Canadian is a little bit better than that. But yeah, so it's 84 cents. And then, then we have the pandemic, which sets women back. All this growth that happened in policy and everything that's coming back and setting us back. So, Forbes just did an article recently, and I think it was May or June, and I can get you the details, but it said 8 to 10 women work in jobs that are primarily administrative and most exposed to the AI automation. That represents approximately 59 million women, which is about 21% more than men in that kind of role. We can't afford to lose 21% more of our workforce that is one gender. We just can't, because
Right.
it's not just what they're doing, it's their perspective. It is their ability to, contribute at home and contribute to childcare and get outside the home. So you think 21%,
Mm-hmm.
21% more, that's how many is going to be affected. I think with 8 in 10 women or 59 million women that are in administrative roles, that's who I'm concerned about. I'm
Right.
not concerned about the jobs that are based on critical thinking and creativity and emotional intelligence, because those three, I don't think, can be satisfied yet by AI. But I'm talking about data and survey and that kind of a skill.
Yeah. So a topic that's come up, one, these concerns are absolutely valid, and there's a disproportionate amount of women in administrative jobs. The thing that's come up on Make Sense several times this year, more than several times, is that in the immediate future, AI will not replace you, but people using AI better than you do will replace you.
Right.
And so if I haven't said this yet on Make Sense.
Lindsay, that's a very good, that needs to be in like neon lights. Like that's
flash.
It really, really does. What you just said, it is not the understanding out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So maybe we can help. We can, when this episode comes out, we can support you in sharing the message that there are options for people to future-proof themselves by educating themselves on how they can use AI right now to help them do their jobs better and faster, and just stay more relevant as the organization evolves.
Right. It 100%. I mean, if I'm an administrative professional and it can save me time instead of sitting there for 6 hours trying to come up with a structure for what I want to talk about or a structure for a project.
Yeah.
If AI can help me come up with an initial structure, great. Then put it aside, learn from it. I just think on the positive end, if we learn to use it and as a resource, not as the main thing, but as a resource, it can then potentially spur creativity, innovation, all sorts of things, but not when it replaces us. But to your point, how are we going to make sure that people are given the opportunity to learn and to use?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, right now, you have to seize the opportunity. If you can access these tools and start using them at work, before the tools are banned or the tools are inaccessible, whatever they are in your organization, start learning them, start figuring out how they can help you. For instance, ChatGPT can shorten emails, give you email templates, can give you an outline of a project plan if you give it some specific parameters. There's other tools I've seen that, for instance, and this is an administrative thing that other people could use help with. I use it. There's a tool, and I'll have to look it up on my phone, but you can take any menu or search any restaurant and then pick any diet, like vegetarian, keto, paleo, and it will scan the menu and tell you what your best option is to stay in that diet, right? Boom.
My background is food and beverage. So all my food and beverage colleagues and owners of restaurants, like chefs, I'm going to take that to the chefs and have a conversation, because that's just then you go food allergies and helping the kitchen, and oh my gosh.
Or if you're an administrative staff and you're ordering for a bunch of people and they're asking you, the app is called Menu Wise, and I'm
writing that down.
I've seen the developer on Reddit talking about it in keto forums. The other app that's really interesting is called Goblin Tools. And now I don't know that it's probably not meant for the enterprise, but for personal use. If you're the type of person that has a hard time starting a project, right? You can say something like, I need to pack for a 2-day trip, and then pick the level of detail you need to get started. And it will list out all of the tasks, like find an area in your room that you can put the clothes that you need to pack. Clear that area, right? Like it can get really detailed, right? Look up the weather for the location that you're going. So, some people that have a hard time getting started or have a hard time figuring out all of the things that they need to get done in order, to clean their house or write a paper or anything like that, they can use this tool to kind of get a very, very detailed.
I think of my friends with ADHD.
Yep.
And
that's how I found it. Yep.
Like, what an incredible tool. Like, what an incredible tool to go, okay, I'm going to break down this enormous project for you, which is getting yourself out of bed and down that stairs to coffee. Here's what I'm going to help you with. Right? I mean, come on.
So these are easy things that we can start playing with that very much help us with administrative tasks and help speed up our day, reduce analysis paralysis. I think the one thing I want to make sure I reiterate for the Make Sense audience about why we can be a little more comfortable that AI is not going to directly replace us anytime soon. It's going to be people that use AI better than you that will replace you. And the reason is that when you look at all of the amazing technological innovation that we've made as a society over the past 20 years that has come to enterprise, to companies, economic indicators for productivity are still stagnant. And one of the reasons I attribute that to is the fact that people who purchase technology for companies, they see the technology as the solution. Okay? So they throw the technology at some solution. They're like, oh, we can reduce 5% of our workforce, right? Because we installed this new enterprise software system.
Right.
Then they realize how much extra work this software system takes to manage.
On the back end.
While some 5% might have lost their jobs, new jobs end up getting created because the technology is never just the solution in itself. And leaders continue to make this poor decision and decisions like this for well over 20 years, right? Which is why we still have data entry jobs. Some of these massive enterprise systems from IBM and Oracle and SAP, they can't talk to each other. They can't make smart decisions. They're all proprietary. So until we solve that integration issue, we can't train AI to solve the integration issue, right? If we don't solve it first with our own human brains. And since we haven't yet done that, then AI really can't take those jobs. Does that make sense? So again, we might see a little bit of, loss of jobs because leaders keep making the same bogus decisions without, accounting for the human part. But then we'll see kind of the expansion and course correction again. And that's why we keep, again, for 20 years, productivity indicators have not increased because it's this hedge. New technology, shed jobs, hire some jobs, new technology, inefficiency continues. Because garbage in, garbage out.
Right. It's just the same. It's the same.
Yeah, it's a cycle. It's a cycle over and over again.
It's the same cycle. Like I was around when we first introduced computers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was already in a vice president role in a global fashion brand. And I remember the first time the computer sat on the desk, this big box, and this Lotus with this flashing 1, 2, 3 and light went off. And I remember everyone being so afraid of, I don't know how to use this. I'm going to be replaced because I don't know how to use this because I'm used to just writing it by. I remember the same kind of that's what I liken it to. It's that whole fear of, I don't understand it. So the more we listen and create awareness listen to folks like yourself and create awareness for podcasts like this, where you're actually like, yeah, that's a problem. I get it. Absolutely. 100%. We need parameters over here, but let's also look over here and see how it can help us and what our own responsibility is. Instead of just like, I don't get it, therefore I'm fearful, therefore I'm against it.
Exactly. And that's why I make sense in the intro. I say, I want to simplify these things so that we can all design ourselves into the future, meaning we can all take measured steps to, pick and choose technology and really understand, computer science, geeks, engineers, we make things so complicated that everyone just fears it.
Yeah.
Right. But some stuff is super basic, right?
It really is. You have a knack for making it more digestible and breaking it down in this way that is not combative, and it is not. It invites more questions, and I think it comes down to, like, someone asked me in an interview recently, like, what if you could change anything and just press one button, like just one thing in the entire life. I said I would press a button that made it mandatory for everyone to be taught how to have difficult conversations.
Interesting.
Because if we actually were able to have conversations that were challenging, difficult, without ego, without pride, without bias, just be able to sit down and have a conversation like we just did right now, today, this hour. You've changed the opinion. I have learned, you've changed my opinion of some things. You will have done the same thing to some of your listeners. And then that ripple effect will happen in their families. And someone's going to talk about a podcast they heard because you're able to have those conversations. So I just want to thank you for that. It's a gift.
Thank you, LA. So let's wrap up. Let's make it make sense. Half of the population goes through menopause, and it's a huge thing that we need to talk about and destigmatize. There's tools to help you understand what's going on with your hormones, and more investment into the FemTech space will help us get there. You can look at them as tools to help with your mental health, with your relationships, or even with productivity, right? To get more stuff done. It's amazing, right? So thank you for listening to Make Sense with me, your host, Lindsay Tabus, and guest, Lorianne, LA Glassford. We hope you enjoyed our take on women, menopause, and how to combat ageism in tech. LA, where can people find you online? I know you mentioned LinkedIn.
I'm at theglassfordgroup.com. They can find me there. I'm on Instagram too, at the Glassford Group or Unlocking Her. So there you go.
Awesome. So as always, you can check out all the links and resources in the show notes. Final note, if you want to continue to be the smartest person in the room, make sure you're getting notified when each episode hits. On YouTube, hit that subscribe for next week's episode. And for audio only, follow wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, LA, for joining me.
Follow you. Everyone follow you. Yes.
See you later.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.